Earthborne Rangers. The Earthborne Games podcast. This is Earthborne Games Classic. Podcast Classic. It's the classic lineup. That's why I screwed up the title. And because I just suddenly pressed record on you guys. I'm sorry. I hope you're all ready to go.
You pressed record on yourself.
I did, yeah. It was a prank on myself more than anything. Welcome to the show. We're going to try some different things today. So stay tuned and see what those things are. We're excited about them. What, Andrew Fisher? Welcome to the show.
Nothing.
Okay. Andrew Navarro's here and Evan Simonet as well. You're all introduced so we can all talk. Andrew told me that he hides himself when we're recording this. So I'm trying that today too. So let's see if y'all can notice a difference. I won't be playing with my hair and beard as much, probably.
Okay. Oh, so yeah, you're hidden, like you can't see your own video.
Exactly. Thank you for helping me explain something more thoroughly.
No, I was just mentally envisioning both you and Andrew like hiding from the camera, like it's just your microphone.
That'd be fun to watch. Evan, how are you doing today?
Good. Yeah, we just it's my daughter's birthday today, and we went to the zoo.
You went to the zoo already today?
That? Yeah.
You went there today. Oh, wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Went there this morning.
That's quite the drive.
I know. And it really screwed up her nap, and I think she's already waking up.
Oh, God.
Because she napped on the way home, and it wasn't a good nap, so we'll see. Maybe she'll fall back asleep. But
so she's two now?
Yeah, she's 2.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Exciting.
Yeah.
You want some cute shoes for her?
We did get some new croc kind of sandal things and just a bunch of stuff, we had a party for her on Saturday and we got a bunch of presents from aunts and uncles and stuff. So
cute.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I understand why when people's kids grow up, they're like eager to shove their toys onto someone else because you end up acquiring so much. It's a little overwhelming, but it's all really cool stuff too. So
okay, good to know, because I was just getting rid of a bunch of my daughter's stuff and I thought of you.
Oh yeah.
But then I thought everybody always has so much stuff already.
Yeah.
So I just dumped it at Goodwill. Good to see you. Andrew Fisher's here too. Hi, how are you? Banter time. Go.
I'm good. I was telling you, but before the show, I was talking a bit like I'm definitely in stuff we'll get into in a later segment. I've been working very furiously the last few days, and I'm working less furiously this morning. And I don't know if other people who have crunched for a deadline have this, but you almost get like a urgency withdrawal after you're done, like a rubber band that's been stretched out and then let go, so I've definitely felt, whatever chemical, adrenaline or whatever your brain, gets pumped into you when there's an urgent deadline, suddenly you have this withdrawal of it. So I'm definitely having more trouble focusing today than I normally do.
How do you feel while you're having the urgency?
Oh, good. You're focused, right? You're like, you're on task and you're just getting things done. But after it's done, like nothing, even though there's lots of tasks, right? I keep my to-do list that I've shown off before. So I know what I have to do next, but it just doesn't feel as important, because you don't have whatever, adrenaline or whatever is coursing through your veins at the time. So actually recording this podcast will be good because sitting here and talking is a singular task that I can focus on, or maybe I'll drift off and just stepping it. We'll see.
I have similar experiences when I'm super busy with work, and I think, man, when this is done, I'm gonna just relax and play a video game, and then when I get there, I just can't do it.
Right?
I just can't downshift into a lower gear or something and relax.
My armchair philosophical scientific theory on this is that when we're at rest or when I don't know, I've been procrastinating a lot lately, and I don't feel good in that mode. But then as soon as I just do the smallest thing, like just look at the ground, pick up a piece of trash, I feel the happiness like rise huge. So you're in this mode of like, I have purpose, I have things to do, I have a list to check off. That's just like where we're supposed to be, I think, as humans. And then of course rest is good. But maybe the day after you're there's like a depression that's like, hey, don't you have something to do? Go find something to do.
Totally.
My theory.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's true. And like, yeah, nothing feels as like important, right? Because your brain conflates urgent and important sometimes, and so they feel, even though they're important things, they feel less important because of the lack of urgency.
Yeah, just today I reserved a U-Haul, and that made me so happy to like get that off the list. I'm like, I've just been flying high since then.
I don't know. Reserving those, you have to spend so much money on those. I always feel
it's $20.
Yeah, up front, and then they get you, right? So
they
like,
I'm
always
me.
like,
they don't get
no,
me.
They don't
They'll
get
never
you.
get me.
I said no
You
thanks
get
about
mileage charges.
I said no thanks about 14 times as I was checking out.
You're gonna take that U-Haul to Tijuana. They'll never get you.
Your truck now.
So there's a charge per mile, huh?
Oh, I don't know. They always I always feel like I spend way more money than I thought when I rent trucks, you know.
Oh, that's okay. That's fine with me. Andrew Navarro, anything to report?
Oh, I've just been sitting here listening because I'm also very tired. Because we've been crunching, as Fisher alluded to, and
how do you feel today?
I'm pretty tired.
Just tired.
Yeah. I'm pretty tired, though.
Evan went to the zoo.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Like, I'd be exhausted. My day would be over. Driving down to the zoo is not that close. Then walking the zoo and then driving back, I would just be taking a nap right now if I was there. So
I didn't want to say that I was tired because I was afraid I would sound like a complete wuss, like I can't handle going to the zoo in the morning. But I am kind of tired.
Yeah.
So
kind of hot out. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I too have that feeling of like, oh man, time for a little bit of break, because I worked over the weekend. I had plans for my schedule in this like crunch mode, and then I caught a cold last week. I got a welcome back to Minnesota cold, so that was fun. Which just I was able to get some work done, but honestly, that day I did work, I don't really remember it very well at all. Hopefully
working in a haze.
Hopefully it's fine, but yeah, those couple days were just lost. So then I was maybe about 80-ish% on Friday, worked all day, and then Saturday, Sunday, supposed to be done on Monday, not done, worked all Monday. What's Wednesday today, right? And then I had a little bit more to do on Tuesday morning. So it was just it was a lot, but we got a lot done, and that felt really, really good. But I have a gigantic pile of email to get to that I'm started chipping away at this morning. But I, like Fisher, I'm going a little slow, let's say.
Well, I'm glad we're here. I thought this would be a good time to record. I guess I was wrong.
No, it was great. It was a good
It's
time.
perfect.
Yeah.
Early afternoon.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to ask you, Evan. What was your favorite animal you saw today?
I like the camels were really cute today. They're kind of all nestled up into this. They're like leaning on each other's humps on the, and that was cute. And yeah, Signy liked that too. So
did you go in the little llama section?
We didn't. We saw it from above. There's like that long like treetop walkway that kind of goes over a large part of the zoo.
Is that where the monorail used to be? Remember the monorail?
Was it a monorail? I don't know.
Yeah, they used to have a monorail at the Minnesota Zoo.
Wow. I didn't know that.
You don't remember? Do you guys remember the monorail?
Oh yeah, I remember the monorail.
Monorail.
What's that?
Simpsons.
Monorail.
I'm a guy.
What's it called?
Monorail.
Mono.
I know that reference right there.
I was just following up on Evan's read there.
Yep.
Did they just replace the monorail track? Did they use the same pillars for that walkway?
That's what I'm wondering. I'm not sure.
Well, the last time we were there, we went. It was like she wasn't even 1 yet. We went in the wintertime just to see the aquarium, and so I don't even know what the treetop walkway was like back then. And I hadn't been to the zoo in a very long time since then, so I don't know. Apparently, my parents never took me or my brother because I don't remember the monorail at all.
How long did a 2-year-old last at the zoo? Like what was the endurance?
She was slowly like wearing herself out because she wanted to walk, and then she got a little surge of energy when she saw the not the Ferris wheel, the
merry-go-round,
carousel.
Jeez, yeah, the carousel. And she loved that, and then started to crash, and then woke up again for the aquarium and loved that. So it was just a slow decline into sleepiness, but with little peaks, here and there.
Nice.
It was probably just a little bit too long for her. We were there for about 2.5 hours or something.
At least she cared about the animals, right?
Yeah.
I think the first time I took my daughter, she just wanted to look at these electrical outlets on the wall. She's like, "What's
we
this?"
have electrical outlets at home.
She wanted to just hang out by this weird electrical outlet for
I paid
like
$50 a person for this.
Yeah. She loved it though. Alrighty then. You guys, can you quote that? You know what that's from?
That's
Yes.
from Ace Ventura, right?
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No one else has said that.
Nobody. Well, I hear that there have been some big milestones hit in development this last week, so let's revisit one of our old segments, Work Stories. What have you guys been up to? Let's roll it over to Evan. Evan, you're the first guy today.
Okay. Well, I definitely, I feel like I was getting away. I came out of this weekend like without the hassle of having to work the whole weekend, like both you two, Fisher and Andrew, had to. So I feel like my work stories aren't going to be as interesting. But
you're just more on the ball than both of us. So then, so your work was already done.
Well, yeah. I mean, speaking of that, there's a lot of work that I had started and got to a certain point for the GameFound launch, like product. I just needed to get a certain amount of packaging designed for the product renders for Corey to render out and throw up on the website. So when we came back from our work retreat in Costa Rica, that was kind of a priority. It was wrapping up all those things that I had to set aside or only did to a certain degree because, art was the priority. And so it was a lot of just revisiting things like the packaging for various products and the deluxe map and the regular map. I think the standout for me last week was the deluxe map because it was cool to read Maxine's. If people who are listening ordered the original deluxe map, there's all these information panels on the backside that provide additional lore and little tidbits of gameplay, pro tips and stuff. And so it's cool to see that again with the Legacy of the Ancestors deluxe map. And this time around, Maxine wrote all that stuff, right, Andrew?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And since I have also had a hand in like reviewing some of the campaign entries and stuff like that before things move on to the translation, I got to see how she pulled a lot of cool lore tidbits from the campaign guide and stuff. So that was pretty neat. So yeah, at the moment, all the graphic design work is pretty darn close, and I'm almost ready to fully transition into just like getting another group of artists together for the next thing and working on the next stuff. So it's pretty cool and pretty wild because I feel like it's been, Legacy and Stewards of the Valley for quite a while for me, for everybody. So
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we've talked vaguely about building up to this deadline, but I don't know if we've actually said what the deadline was.
Nope.
Yeah,
So,
I know. I
Andrew,
kind of spoiled it.
I have
didn't
no
I?
clue.
What did we accomplish?
We finally handed off files, all the files, or all the files we can. There's a couple that are still outstanding because we need to get final dial lines from the factory before we hand them off. But all the files for localization, which was a deadline that we had set for ourselves many months ago, and then I blew past them, the campaign guide in particular, and then we brought Maxine on board, and then that was another great excuse to push the deadline even further, so that she could have a chance to review the Legacy of the Ancestors campaign, and it was totally worthwhile for us to play that campaign together. Fisher, Maxine, and I caught so many things and made so many improvements. But then that left like actually having to implement a lot of those things, and there's a lot of writing that needed to be done for that for a long time, writing and editing. That I think I was telling Fisher about this. Like, I really like crunch time because it finally, like, you know, when the deadline is there and it's like, no, this is actually the deadline. There's no moving it. Then I feel like there's just this gigantic surge of creative energy that comes out of that, and I always really enjoy those moments. And it kind of forces like me as someone who when I tend to write, I feel like I really got to be feeling it, you know. And if the deadline's like far away and I'm not feeling it and I'm trying to write, I'm like, you know, I'll just wait until I feel it. But then when the deadline is like right there, it's like, well, you better start feeling it, or else you're really gonna miss this deadline. So thankfully I did, and it was really fun. So yeah, so we handed off everything to Partners for Localization, but I think you know, since the Game Found was English only, I think what most people are most probably excited about is that means that we'll be transitioning over into manufacturing and production land from this point forward. So so that's pretty cool. So I'll be switching gears here the next few days into the next week, and then hopping back onto those tasks, and then being able to focus on that now too, because you know the bulk of the work is done. So yeah, pretty exciting stuff. I can't believe we're finally here. It's like I feel like we've just been working on this project, the Legacy of the Ancestors, for so long. It's been like a year and a half, I think, at this point.
Wow.
Is that right, Fisher?
Yeah,
year and a half?
Yeah,
ish.
A little more. Because we had, when Brooks went back to work at FFG, we brought Luke onto the project. So we had a staffing changeover, and then we were shipping, completing, making the Living Valley all for the core set at the same time, and then we, like, as the core set wrapped, then we went and launched a whole other Game Found. So we were doing so many things simultaneous to this project that this project stretched, like, so yeah, I think it's a year and a half to 2 years that we've been working on this thing.
Wow, that's crazy. And the ends too, like I remember thinking like, oh, this will be like, I think our original vision for it was going to be like two-thirds of the size of the original campaign. And I think like straight word count, I think it's more. I think it might be more.
Yeah. Well, we're pretty close, I think, on word count. But yeah, it might be a little more. The map has an equal number of locations, though some of them are the same locations again, but with new content at them and stuff. But yeah, it ended up. Well, it's funny because we originally were scoping for 60 to 70% of the length, and it was going to 2 different locations. So each location would be like 30% of the core set. And then we scoped down to just focusing on a single location, and then it ended up at the same size as the core set. So
it's great though. I think it's pretty awesome. It was a lot of fun to work on. I think people are going to love it.
I loved reading through the campaign guide last week. I'm aware of a lot of the things because of the art, and I needed to know about. But actually reading through and following all the narrative paths, it was really cool. There's things I didn't realize that would be in there, so I'm
That's
excited.
Awesome.
So when will it ship?
Hopefully still at the end of this year. Like, I think we don't have dates yet from the factories, but the fact that we're printing regionally, that should put us in a really good spot to still hit the end of this year to start fulfillment. I don't think we're going to be done with fulfillment at the end of the year, but I think that we will at least get it started.
When did the core game come out again?
Very surprised if we didn't. It started, well, that's a complicated question to answer, but it came out in Italian in May of last year.
Okay.
That was the launch. The Italian first launch, and then a couple months after that came out in German and French, and then I think October is when it finally started to hit in English. End of October into November of last year. So
is that a pretty quick turnaround for an expansion for like a small studio? Feels like it to me. I don't know. I know nothing though.
A year is pretty much where we want to be. Like that's the goals, that we'll have like a major thing a year. That is the goal.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't know if that's. It feels slow to me. Like compared to what we've been used to in our careers, it's much, much, much slower. But yeah, we would usually like at FFG. We'd launch a core set like this, and then maybe the next quarter, then we'd have the first expansion come out, or 6 months tops.
Yeah, it's usually about. I guess it depends on the
delays
type of
and
product.
things.
Yeah. On card games, usually we'd follow it up pretty fast. But the thing that we had at FFG was a massive support structure, right? Like all of, like we wouldn't be running the same people developing the game wouldn't be running a Kickstarter campaign. Not that FFG does Kickstarters, but we wouldn't be doing the marketing. We wouldn't be doing any of the production coordination. We wouldn't be making the website.
We wouldn't be doing the customer support.
We wouldn't be doing the podcast, or just occasionally appearing on the podcast, right? So we are slower than we would have been at FFG because we're wearing so many hats.
Yeah, so but I think it's good timing though. I think I think for the small amount of people who already played the core game, I think by the time the expansion comes out at the end of the year, they'll be ready. And then there's plenty of people who are still, playing through it right now. And then they might finish. Maybe they'll time it with us with the playcast, and they'll, finish roughly at the end of the year, and then they'll be ready for something new. And then obviously we'll have, those people who are going to be getting their game through the Game Found for the first time, and they'll get everything all at once, which is going to be. It's gonna be a lot of game. That's a lot of game. So you'll be entertained for quite some time, and then by the time you're finally done with that, then we'll have another campaign expansion for you.
Well, I have 2 months off, and I tried to play the core set with my sister, and they're never gonna hear this. Her boyfriend, who wasn't great to play the game with. Too many. Like me and my sister wanted to just like focus on the game, get into our characters. But he wanted to like chit chat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Chit
How
chat.
dare he?
I know. So I think I'm going to start up again with just her, or maybe solo.
Nice.
I got 2 months off, baby.
Yes, perfect time. There's never been a better time.
There's never been, because I got to play the expansion too. I thought of a funny bit. Wouldn't it be funny if I, since I'm not looking at my camera, if I just held up like a mirror right now and just staring at myself? Don't have
just
one by
no
me.
Context.
Anything else we wanted to say about the work stuff?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things I wanted to make sure to mention.
Yeah.
Along with this file handoff to partners and the prep for production, we are also preparing a big update to the Living Valley. So we're going to implement all of the changes and few errata that we've added to the second printing. All that will show up on the Living Valley. We'll also post the final version of the second printing rulebook and the campaign guide. So that'll all be coming in the next couple of weeks, along with Maxine's new one-day mission that she's been working on. So our hope is that all that'll drop simultaneously. Corey's going to be on next week's the 4th of July. So Corey is going to be on vacation. So it won't happen that week, but our hope is the week after that is when all that'll go up.
Corey's a big fireworks head.
So, well, he's going to go spend time with his family. Yeah, he's going on a tour of a whirlwind tour. Going to see a bunch of fireworks shows.
The best displays in the nation.
He's going to Baldwin, Wisconsin, where you get all the dangerous fireworks.
Oh,
no.
Will you buy them? Will you purchase them?
That's right. And then I am going to a convention tomorrow morning. I'm going to New York for the
New York.
Games for Change Festival. I'll be on a panel there along with the designer of Votes for Women, Tori Brown, Eric Lang, and Elizabeth Hargrave, and myself will be on this panel. And it was originally going to be moderated by Charlie Hall, the board game editor at Polygon, but he came down with COVID, so he's not going to make it. So instead, it's going to be moderated by Lindsey Graham, who I think is the person
politician.
He said, not him, not Lindsey Graham. Maybe it's not Lindsey Graham. Let me go back here. It's Lindsey Grace. Sorry, Lindsey Grace, okay. Not Lindsey Graham. That'd be something.
That'd be so funny.
That would be hilarious. I would love that.
I think the Games for Change panel, getting interviewed by someone in this conservative politician would be an interesting panel.
Exactly, that would be entertainment gold. Yeah, I apologize, Lindsey Grace, not Lindsey Graham, Lindsey Grace. He, I think, is the guy who is in charge of the entire show, so he's like stepping in and doing it. So. It'll be interesting. So I'll be on the live stream on their YouTube channel Friday afternoon. I think at 3. I think that's when the panel is. Right around there. You can look up the schedule on there on the website if you want to check that out and hear me talk for approximately 1 to 2 minutes on each topic as we barrel through a 45-minute panel.
Oh wow.
So, but I'll be going to New York. It'll be interesting. I've only been there one other time. I went for the New York toy show right before the pandemic. Last time I was there. So that's it. That's the only other thing I want to make sure to mention.
Awesome.
Lindsey Graham.
Well, let's move on to listener questions. Sometimes you just search your head for a joke and there's nothing. And there's just a long, awkward pause. Listener questions. Y'all ready for this? First question this week comes from Cleanse. Can you tell us a little bit about the amazing Spirit of the Valley artwork that was this week's Wallpaper Wednesday treat? Go ahead, Evan.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure how much I can say about it because, Andrew, you did the wonderful sketch that I worked from. It came directly from your mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you, with all my sketches, I think you did an amazing job bringing it to life in a way that I simply do not have the ability to do. But it's I think it's one that we've been previewing on the playcasts because it's I think Corey's been using it in his deck.
Yeah, I think he was 3 focus.
Yeah, so I think that version of the card that he would show on the little pop-ups had my like original sketch in it, and obviously we had the sketch in it for the Covenant live stream as well. But yeah, really, I was just trying to. I did a few sketches for the what we were calling like greater spirits for the spirit speaker specialty. And a couple of them came really easy to me, like the spirit of Mount Nim. That was like immediately I was like, oh, I got this cool idea, and I drew it up, and there it was. And then the same thing with the spirit of the Verdessa, like that one too, like came to me really, really easily. And then for the spirit of the valley, I knew I wanted to have like this kind of this personification of the valley, and kind of in between Evan's original mountain illustrations that he did for the panoramas for the core set, and I knew I wanted to have like these kind of like almost skeletal like arms that were made out of trees, and she was like standing over Spire, and wanted to have stuff with the arcology there and like the mists kind of flowing around it, just to try to encapsulate all of the valley in one illustration. But it took me a long time to get like the head and face right. I went through a lot of different versions of that, and I disliked everything I did up until the moment where I realized that doing something kind of similar to the cartographer of many worlds sketch that I did with like the kind of the veil over the eyes, I thought that would be a cool direction to go, and then it all kind of just sprung from that. So yeah, that character, that being is just meant to symbolize like all life in the valley. And it's also a really cool card. It's got 3 challenge effects on it.
I personally, working on the I guess you could call them the greater spirit pieces, like the Verdessa in the valley, Silverfin, and Nim. Those were really cool because they feel they're apart stylistically from the other spirits and the other like being art, because they're more surreal representations, and it was just a fun way to lean into like a stylization that I felt like I couldn't do outside of like things like the box art and stuff like that. So all those mists swirling around the feet of the spirit of the valley I was just kind of leveraging that kind of like swirly kind of style that I've been obsessed with since we conceived of the box art for the core. So it was fun to work on those pieces. I put them off to the end because I was intimidated by him, but finally doing them was cool. It felt great. So
I love those swirls. Yeah, this definitely stood out to me when I saw it as something kind of off the beaten path, and I love it. That's awesome. There's more in this style? Is that right?
There's none that are quite as grand as this one.
Yeah,
but yeah. There's a set of 4 of these that come in the Spirit Speaker. These are the 3 aspect cards that you can pull: the Spirit of Mount Nim, Spirit of the Silverfin, Spirit of the Verdessa, or the Spirit of the Valley.
The Spirit of the Verdessa's also got like a vibe, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, the Spirit of the Valley and the Verdessa both encapsulate such a large, like, grandiose, arguably all the other spirits are encapsulated, like within these singular places, so they're probably the 2 most grandiose.
Yeah, there's very like I think they're the closest in vibe, I think, to like Princess Mononoke that we have in the game.
Yeah,
people love that. Make something in the style of Princess Mononoke, and you'll get back. You'll get back on Kickstarter.
Yeah,
Isn't it? Doesn't it feel that way? All right, just copy something that everyone loves, and you're good to go. Not saying this looks like a. This doesn't look like a copy.
It's called knowing your influences, Anders.
Yeah. Right. Okay, question 2 from Cleanse. In the past, you've talked about making an official TTS mod. Is that still a thing in your heads? This comes up a lot, I feel.
Yeah, we've answered this question a few times, but I felt like it was good to comment on it again. I think our answer is fairly similar to the last time we talked on this subject, which is that, yes, we're still interested in giving some way to digitally play the game. We did... So to do an official TTS mod, you actually have to work with Berserk Games. And I reached out to them, and I got ghosted. They never replied to us. I bothered them a couple times, though I did consider, after the Shut Up and Sit Down video came out, I did consider just sending that to them.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was going to be too gauche, but so we didn't hear back from Berserk, and we've talked about like just putting up an unofficial workshop mod, but we've had a couple other folks reach out with some interesting digital options that we've kind of been taking a look at and discussing amongst ourselves. So we've been pursuing different options. We are still interested in finding something, but we want to find kind of the right fit. And so that's where we're at right now, where it is still on our minds, but we can't say we have anything specific coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think like where I would lean towards with TTS, and who knows, maybe I'll regret saying this out loud, but I'm going to say it. Is that like I feel like if obviously if unless Berserk gets back to us and allows us to create something that you can actually purchase, like I think probably the better option for us on TTS, honestly, given our size and the time investment, would be to just if there's a fan who wants to do like a version of it and asks our permission, like, hey, is this all right if I do this? And then they could take care of it. Like that's probably the best option on TTS, frankly, because someone's going to do it anyway. It's going to be, it might be there already for all I know. I don't know. But there's really nothing stopping anyone from just making their own at this point, because all the material exists out in the world. You can just make it. So if it's going to exist and we can't charge for it, I'd rather just like say, hey, if there's a fan out there who wants to make this a project of theirs where they can keep it up to date and keep it good, and we have an understanding that we're not going to sue them or anything, then I think that's probably the best option for TTS. Again, the best option is for Berserk to work with us so we can charge for it, but second best, I think, is just some kind of fan-made thing.
I think the best option is if like a video game developer approached you and said, we want to make a video game version of this, like
that's its own thing though, right? I don't think the existence of that does not make it so that there won't be a TTS version.
Can you envision that, like the video game version? Can you see how that would work?
Yeah, I think it could be. I think it'll be challenging. I think, like I've said before, I think we could do a 1-to-1 version of the game. Obviously, that's going to be a very different experience from something that is built from the ground up as a video game. And I don't know. I hope there's room for both of those things, to do a 1-to-1 representation of Rangers as you play it on the table, and then maybe like a video game thing inspired by it. I think would be cool too.
Both.
But yeah, like Fisher said, people have reached out. We're working on some stuff, or rather, other people are working on stuff, and we're taking a look at it. So stay tuned. Cool
beans. All right, the next question comes from Knave of Clubs. What do you all think about swapping Rangers mid-campaign in between sessions? For example, if you camp in a village or a ranger station, you may change your character completely. One ranger goes to take rest and another one takes over for them.
Well, you should go watch our advanced playcast to see our feelings on this. In our advanced playcast, we have, let's see, we usually play 2 or 3 player games, some occasional 1 player games, and I think we've played 5 different characters across 12 days at this point. So we, granted, we each have been holding our own ranger and always playing our own ranger on the days we're there, but we constantly swap back and forth and swap in rewards to our decks when we jump into the game. And you can totally extrapolate that out to swapping out a different deck for yourself to play as well. So strong support. We are totally fine with it. We didn't build it into the base rules of the game, mostly to avoid we wanted a singular message about what your character is and how they are managed, and talking over all these options of you can swap in and out, you could change out your character, you can look at how flexible this is. It kind of muddies, you're trying to teach the rules and it muddies that teaching and muddies what the optimal experience is supposed to be. So the rules present very much, this is how a campaign and your character works, but we've also designed them in such a way intentionally fairly flexible for drop in, drop out play, and for adaptability like this, swapping in characters. If you don't like the deck you're playing, swapping in for a different deck.
Yeah, I love the idea of if this appeals to you as a solo player, or as if you're just playing with a dedicated group. I really like the idea of creating a little roster.
Yeah,
of Rangers, giving them all names. And, it's we're gonna get these guys out.
I was just gonna say that. Sorry to interrupt you, but I was gonna reference X-Men or a team or Avengers, West Coast Avengers or something, where the roster is fluctuating all the time. I just love that sort of thing. So,
well, that was even ideas we talked about during development that may end up appearing elsewhere at some time in the future, but is XCOM style management of your ranger team and which ones are out on missions versus injured right now, and managing this roster of different rangers is an idea we really liked and didn't find room for in Rangers in the course box, but are interested in exploring in some ways someday.
Yeah, I think that's one of the many things that I've dropped into the Carbon Forge mode documents.
It is in the Carbon Forge document.
Yeah, there you go.
But I wasn't going to say that.
One day we'll dedicate more time to that.
Okay, next question covers some Backtrack Jack. What are the limitations of the LCG distribution model? I've heard EBR described as, and I can see that it is. Okay, I've heard EBR described as this, and I can see that it is LCG-like, and wondering if that's because you're legally not allowed to call it an LCG, or is it simply not an LCG? Little cuddly guy.
Well, this is. I think I saw this linked in the Discord, and this listener is early. There's plenty of people who are listening from our podcast from episode 0 all the way up, and I think
I can't believe that. It's so surprising that someone would find this cool for that long, but it doesn't. I mean,
hey, what are you saying?
Yeah, well, our viewership and listenership is only growing. It's only growing.
Yeah, it's almost double what it usually was in the past, maybe.
Yeah, easily.
No, it's cool. I love that. It means people are just kind of they feel connected to us, even though we're just regular old guys.
That's right.
We're a bunch of idiots.
Hey, speak for yourself. Yeah, so I think we'll answer this again, and then maybe in a couple months when he gets to this episode, he'll hear it one more time. But yeah, so I think the question where he was is it simply not an LCG? I think I've said this in another episode. I challenge you to define an LCG. What is a living card game these days? it really just means a card game that's similar in style to a collectible card game, but has regular fixed releases. So in that way, I think Earthborne Rangers is very much like an LCG. But as you guessed, Backtrack Jack, LCG, living card game, and the living card game logo are registered trademarks of Asmodee North America. So you cannot use those in any marketing or anything without, danger of any kind of some kind of legal action. So they do not. Just for fun, I went and looked at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office website to see if they define what an LCG or a living card game is, and they do not. They just own the words. So apparently you can just go and just register any words you want, and then you can just own them, which is ridiculous.
Like Meeple.
Like Meeple, that's right. Well, Meeple's a little bit harder. Like LCG is one of those ones that I think, like over time, like Kleenex, people just start to say LCG, which to me is a victory of the brand. So congratulations, you won.
I don't like how
call things LCGs.
I don't like how people call every soda Coke though in the South.
Yeah,
that's really dumb.
Yeah, it's really weird.
When I worked as a server, I hated that, right? Because they'd ask for a Coke, you'd go get them a Coke, and they'd be like, "No, I wanted a Sprite Coke," and you're like, "Just confusing."
Where did you work?
I worked at a Red Lobster.
Where?
Huh? Oh, I worked
In
at a
Minnesota?
couple locations: Roseville, Burnsville.
So people do that here too.
Well, I mean, it was usually people from the South
Travel,
who would come up. Yeah,
I wanted a Sprite Coke.
yeah.
God, that's so dumb.
I'm sure if I was from the South, I'd just be used to it.
Right.
But it was always weird.
And there's things where, like Whopper, like the Whopper. You got the Burger Whopper and you got the Malted Milk Ball Whopper. Those have the same name. There's a lot of things where they have the same name.
You can have the same name, but you have to be in a different category.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like when I did research on what to name the company, like finding like Earthborne, like there are plenty of other Earthborne things. Like I've said before, there's like an Earthborne like kitty litter.
With an E at the end?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wasn't there like a farm equipment company too?
Yeah, I think so. I think there was. I think that one might be still active. Most of them were defunct. And then there was an Earthborne game studio that was no longer around. That was like a video games place.
Earthborne Trucks and Equipment. They
There
still
you go.
beat us on Google if you just Google Earthborne with an E.
Oh.
This is like the quintessential, the polar opposite of like sustainably produced game about the far future. It's just trucks, bulldozers.
Yeah.
Things for demolishing.
So if you
the
wanted to
environment.
like make your Earthborne like terraforming company, you could do that, and you could also register it for that. So yeah, it is pretty flexible.
Evan, what are you Googling?
I was going to look up the keyboard command for the registered symbol because I was going to share something in chat, but no, I'm not going to anymore.
I think new running gag is, what are you Googling? Tell me now.
What you Google?
Porno. Sorry.
I'm Googling the word porno.
I've always wondered what that means. Where are my show notes? Okay, let's move on. We answered that. Next one's from Mikhail. What happens to Valley residents that become a problem to society? Problem in quotes.
Yeah. I thought so. I think this is I understand where this question is coming from, but I think it does then provide an opportunity to talk about like what that could actually mean in this context, in this question, and like what I tend to see as like, what do they do with dissidents or like revolutionaries or something. And I think that or just troublemakers,
criminals.
But when to say like a problem to society, that means to me like that you are somehow at odds with the society. And I think this is just an opportunity to talk about in the setting. One of the core conceits is that all the people of the world share a common belief and ethos, so that while they may disagree on some things, they don't really disagree on how they should live. Everyone really agrees to that. There may be different ideas on how, like, what that means, like to live like in harmony with the earth and in harmony with each other. But everyone in the entire world has these core beliefs that they must live in harmony with each other and with the earth, and it's just
how did they achieve that?
Ingrained with them through great adversity and thousands of years of that. 2,000 years have passed since now, and like I feel like there's so much strife and greed and conflict in today's world, that when in the fictional setting of Earthborne, when people are faced with a truly like existential threat that they then work their way through and come out the other side through like a lot of difficulty and danger, that they are fundamentally changed. So it took a lot to get there, but eventually they did. It took centuries, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, like almost 2,500 years to get to this point. So that's kind of a core conceit of it. That all being said, we do talk about a little bit in the world book about in the timeline about exiles, and there is some and in the game obviously there's Tala Red. She's an exile. What she did to be exiled is a mystery, but clearly there are mechanisms in place to cast people out of society when they break some kind of rule or some kind of like understanding. I think for the most part, I'd like to keep that like relatively vague at this point in the setting, but like many things, the details of the society, the very like minutia, like I think this is like great stuff for things like an RPG where you can really dig in, or you can create your own rules and your own stories around these types of things. Because I think, if you want to tell a story about someone who is like having trouble with society, like as a game master or a player, like once the game is in your hands, you can tell that story. But as far as like the setting goes, I like to keep some of that stuff vague. But at least in the example that we provide in the world book, someone who kills somebody, and then their sentence effectively is to be cast out and then go learn some stuff and then come back. And then when they come back, they've effectively done their time. They're welcomed back into society, and then they've grown as an individual. That's like one little story that we tell in the world book. But you can imagine that people make mistakes and have problems in this world just like any other. They might feel a little bit differently, but the way that they deal with like the biggest issues is they may cast someone out for a while, go on a long walk, like let's just say 10 years and then come back, stuff like that. But the idea is that the community and the people of the valley, they care for each other throughout their entire lives, and there's a connection that they share that I think is, in my mind, I guess, very alien to American society anyway.
This world to come true.
That's the idea.
Long after I'm gone, but all right. Next question comes from Wheezy. I've daydreamed about quite a few themes that would really be fun and interesting in the mechanical system of EBR. Have there been any discussions about using the system in new themes/worlds, or about loaning out the system to other designers? I like the idea of a Disney Earthborne Rangers.
Doesn't Disney make enough stuff already?
All right. What do we say?
I just threw up there.
So who's going to answer this one?
Well, go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, me? You want me to talk?
Yeah.
I've been like
No, go ahead.
lecturing here. We've talked about this a lot actually, and I think there are lots of. I think the system for Earthborne Rangers would work really, really well in a ton of different settings. It's designed very much like a role playing game system, where I think you could very easily put all sorts of different themes on it and then make little tweaks and adjustments, add in little new systems to work thematically with whatever theme you wanted to put on it. I have talked to some people about the possibility of doing more with it. And I think we'd be more than happy to license out the system if there's someone who's like really inspired and wants to make something. I think that'd be great. We'd never just loan it out, but we'd do some kind of like official license for sure. I think that'd be great. But yeah, when it comes to doing more themes ourselves, it really just comes down to time and effort. This is a huge game, and to do it right, I think it'd be so much work. So however exciting it would be to do a space adventure based on Earthborne Rangers, let's say, that's multi-year project right there. So maybe if we were to do that, that's many years down the road once Rangers is done. Or if someone comes along and says, "Hey, I'd love to use your system for this thing," I'm all ears.
If you were to boil down what is kind of the most central mechanic that makes the game unique, that you say, "Oh, this is clearly based on Earthborne Rangers," like what would that one thing be that sets it apart from the mechanics of other games?
I think that's an interesting question. I think there's a few different things, right? Like, and you wouldn't want to. There's a few pillars, and you wouldn't want to change every pillar, but you can probably change like one, maybe two, with it still feeling like the game, right? But I don't think there's any one that's necessarily sacred. I'd say that the challenge deck and the challenge effects are probably one of the most central, recognizable pillars, right, of the game. And so that would be a pillar that you would need a lot to swap out and still be the same game. But there's a bunch of pillars around that pillar that also really make Rangers, from like the open world and campaign to kind of like the cards linking to the campaign, hooking into the campaign guide, to your deck as your character, to like tests and how those work. There's like a few of these different pillars, and like these ones you could pull out one, but you can't pull out all of them without it being the same game, right? So it's a slightly tricky question to answer, but I think I'd probably go to the challenge effects as like one of the most identifiable, a lot because of just the iconography and how it contributes to the ecology, which is really central to the experience of the game.
Sweet.
But yeah, part of the reason I threw this question at Andrew was because I wasn't sure how much we wanted to say about various things we've thought about. But like, I think he hit the nail on the head, at least from my perspective, as far as our team goes. And one thing about Rangers is it's an incredibly content-heavy game, and what that means is that like you can't make a new Rangers product without like a ton of work. And like every game is a ton of work, but there are a lot of board games where you might just take the board game and you can like re-theme that game in a new setting, tweak a couple mechanics, and you got like a whole new release. And don't get me wrong, still a lot of work, but like we're talking an order of magnitude less than something like writing a whole 20-day campaign with interlocking like branching stuff, designing cards, like all of the ecology of the game, all of that comes out of the development, right? The whole open world and how you explore it, like the things you're actually exploring, all content development. And so even if you keep all those central pillars the same, the work required to make a whole new Rangers campaign somewhere else is just huge. And so Might we do it one day when Rangers, when like, we talked about our planned campaign, when that runs its course, might we use this same system in a slightly different context? Perhaps. But until then, we're probably not going to spool up a whole second team doing the same game in a slightly different setting. As we've talked about previously, we're going to spool up some people doing an entirely different game.
Exactly.
Not as simple as making Fortnite Monopoly.
No.
Not as simple as rebranding Monopoly.
I'm just looking at weird Monopoly.
Oh, there's so
variations.
many.
The
There are
Beatles
so many.
Monopoly. There are. Okay, finally, question from Lex Rex. Based on the current lore for the world of EBR, what other genre of board game do you think would work in the setting? What might a competitive multiplayer game look like? Just wait and play it, right? I don't know. I assume that's down the line.
That's a pretty good answer, Anders.
Yeah. Is it Brandon Sanderson always says, read and find out, right? Play and find out.
I saw a Brandon Sanderson novel on the bank lady's desk yesterday.
Oh, really?
And I said, hey, you like that book? And she's like, I don't know, my son is making me read it.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
It's okay.
But like we've talked about a lot of different games that could work in the setting. Like the world of EBR is so broad, right? Like, what games could work in the Valley is probably a much more limited scope. What games could work in the whole world? It's almost unlimited because the world's a lot less globalized than it is today. There's all sorts of different parts of the setting, and like one thing we're excited to explore one day is like, what does the Earthborne setting look like in entirely different regions of the world, and like how does that region translate into kind of this post-apocalypse future, right? And so because of that, because the world is so different around at these different areas, probably any game could find a place. Well, maybe not any game. Some themes maybe aren't fundamental to the Earthborne setting, but I think a lot of different competitive games. But even within the scope of things we've talked about in the World Guide, you have like the Mississippian Sea and the Merchants. I've always loved played like Regatta with my dad, which is a sailing game, and it'd be so cool to make a little sailing game where you're Mississippian merchants doing like the trading. They have this kind of like pseudo competitive trading game they play with each other, where they kind of like, it's kind of friendly piracy that they have going on. Like you could make a whole game around sailing around and doing that on the Mississippian Sea. There's a lot of, outside of the Valley, I think we could make almost any game we wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
inside the Valley, I think there's probably specific things that like fit the vibe more, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's probably a lot to do to explore, just the Rangers and what they do. We were talking about like XCOM style team management earlier, and but there's also a ton to explore with the different settlements and villages in the Valley and like how they kind of live their lives. From like, you could do like cozy games, maybe a la, a Stardew Valley with maybe a little less industrialized farming, but like all the way to like how the villages are kind of run and managed and what the villagers do to like work with the Valley. I think there's a few different games in there.
Mm-hmm. I thought of a title the other day for a game that there's no game for, but I liked the title. Biomeld.
Ooh.
Biomeld.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Makes me think of that game Carrion. Have you ever seen that video game? You play as this kind of like thing.
Yeah,
like
you're like this big massive
amorphous monstrosity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you could play as the Biomeld,
Yeah.
It made me think of like those like kids games or books where you like you mishmash different parts of creatures together, and you have like the top third is this thing, the middle third is this thing, the bottom third is this thing.
Biomeld is a good title, Andrew. I think you're good at that. You're good at titling.
Thank
There's
you.
one thing you're good at.
That is one thing I am all right at. Sometimes I'm still struggling with the title for a Corey game. I have a list of like.
What if we just called it Corey Game?
I'm not gonna. That has crossed my mind.
This is how they
Gary's
ended up with Thedas.
Yeah.
Are you all familiar with how the Dragon Age setting got its name?
No.
So the world is called Thedas, Thedas, and it's because in all their internal documentation they called it the Dragon Age setting, and they abbreviated it to the DAS.
Oh,
and that's all
Thedas.
the internal documentation referred to it was the DAS, and then they just started calling it Thedas, and that became its generic fantasy world name.
It works though. It works.
That's cool. Yeah, it reminds me of my talking to Daryl Hardy, a guy who used to work at FFG and was one of the creators of the Roombound setting. He would call Tyranoth Myasia because he pulled it all out his ass.
That's pretty funny.
Myasia. Man, now I got to go trademark Biomeld because no one's taken it yet. So gotta go.
I think you should. What was that game that kind of flopped? Biomutant.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Don't want to be associated with that though.
That's a good name too, though. I like Biomutant.
It is. Yeah.
You don't like that one? Too bland.
Biomutant.
Yeah, Fisher made a sound. So
yeah.
Yeah. No, I was saying yeah.
No, you said no. You said
Isn't
no.
Kind of redundant to say biomutant. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like you can have a RoboMutant. I guess you could have a RoboMutant.
RoboMutant. Now you're talking.
Would that apply to Corey's game?
RoboMutant.
The next game from Earthborne Ranger.
Fast forward a year.
Corey, we just named your game on the podcast. Grimace.
The follow-up to Earthborne Rangers, RoboMutant. All right, there's a follow-up question here from Tex-Mex or what? Holy shit! I keep losing my document because I'm doing all kinds of stuff. Where did that go? Did I close it? Someone else read that?
We can save that one for later, though. Let's
move on.
It's a sign. We'll save that one. We'll do part 2 of his later.
All right. So we have a very special segment now called. Well, let me just say, I every week I watch the Game Scoop podcast from IGN. It's my little comforting podcast, and they do video game 20 questions every week, and I find it very amusing. So I would love to do indie video game 20 questions. Though, is it an indie video game? I don't know. You got to use one of your questions on that. It's a well-known game.
You might have just spoiled it for us.
It is a game that I'm sure you've all heard of, and you're going to have 20 questions to guess what the game I've been playing is. And you guys can just ask at will. No
I
order.
should have looked up 20 question strategies. You need things that optimally
Well,
divide
all right,
the
so
space.
It's a video game. Figure out the time period, yeah.
Yeah, is 20 questions? This is yes or no answers, right?
Yes or no.
Okay.
That's
Evan, did you have a question?
Well, I was gonna propose we try to triangulate when it was released, either this year or in the last 5 years or something. But
what if it's like an anniversary edition of something?
You can ask us.
Then we'd be in trouble.
Just to help you out, that is something that these guys do every time. They try to narrow down the time frame.
Yeah, when it was released.
Well, I guess should we ask if
you can say like pre this time?
If it's an indie game or not? Does it matter? We think that would help us.
Well, he kind of gave us the info, so we might as well ask it just to officially make it question 1. Is this an indie game?
Yes.
Okay. I guess this could get into the what is an indie game discussion.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that.
Yes, it is an indie game. All right. Do we want to ask if it came out this year? Do we think that's a good
question?
Yeah,
I think that's a good question.
Did this game come out this year?
No.
Shoot.
See, that doesn't really help me.
By far the biggest possibility space.
Doesn't really help me because I'm not super up on everything that comes out anymore. So.
Okay. I feel
is it?
Oh,
we could ask. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Is it a side-scrolling game?
No.
No.
Is it single player?
I would say mostly. So yes. Well, no.
Mostly.
No. The answer is no. It's not.
No, it's not.
It's not just single player.
So that makes me feel
Not
like it's one of them.
Just single player.
That's 4 questions already. We're almost like quarter of the way through.
Aren't there those Souls games where you can jump in someone else's game or something? Or
There are, yeah.
how many? I don't play those games, so I don't know how many there are of that type of where it's like somewhat single player, but there is a soft
Is it
like
Is it a third-person action game?
No.
Okay, that cuts down a lot.
It's neither.
I was
neither
going
of
to
those
ask.
things.
I was going to ask if it's a roguelike, but I feel like if it has a multiplayer component, it's probably not a roguelike, right?
Is it a first-person game?
No.
Okay.
All right, so
six?
it's not side-scrolling. It's not a third-person or first-person game. So when I say
Real-time
side-scrolling,
strategy?
I really am just meaning like 2D plane.
Well, you
That's
asked,
what I
you
meant.
asked if it's a third-person action game, right? So
I did say action. Yeah. Could
So
just be.
probably
I gave you a little
top-down.
help, and I said it's neither of those, third person or action.
Okay.
And by
So it's
third
not
person,
third person
I'm thinking
or
like,
first person.
I'm thinking like
3D behind.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So it sounds like
It's
it might be like a.
second-person game.
So it's not a. So it's not a first-person or third-person game. So
It's
like.
probably top-down kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah.
Might be top-down. Yeah.
So that's like maybe a either like a Chrono Trigger type game or like a real time strategy.
Yeah.
This is harder than I thought it would be, Anders. This is
Well, it's also Anders too. We should try to
Yeah, it's indie.
like we should try to think of like the games that he likes to play. Which, if it's not side, so I'm already thrown off because it's not side scrolling, so I don't even know anymore. It sounds like it could be like a puzzle game though at this point.
it has some multiplayer in it is what's really throwing me, like
It's probably like it's probably like Wordle.
Can I give you some examples of what you could ask about? You could ask about art style. You could ask about where you play it. You could ask about what consoles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is it pixel based?
Yes.
Okay, it is pixel art.
7 questions.
Did we
I
already?
mean, we have to ask the it has to be yes or no, right? So we have to ask the console one at a time.
Yeah. Well, I think do we want to ask if it's a roguelike? Is that one that you feel like that would narrow it down?
If it has multiplayer, it's probably not.
No, I mean Spelunky has is a roguelike that has multiplayer. Nuclear
Alright,
Throne has multiplayer. I mean, it's crazy, but you could do it.
All right, so it's pixel art, not from the last few years, or not from this last year. Has multiplayer, probably top down.
Are you Googling things?
Yeah, I'm looking at my browser. It doesn't have. It is
Is it published?
combat.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Fisher.
Is,
No,
is combat the main focus?
No.
Stardew Valley's got multiplayer.
That's what I was going to ask. That's what I thought of. Like, is it Stardew Valley?
I was immediately gonna. I was like, should I burn another question on is farming the focus?
Yeah, just do it. Is
farming
it
the
resource
focus?
management?
Yes.
Yeah.
Farming is the focus. Okay.
Yes.
Is it Stardew Valley?
Yes.
Hey, okay.
10 questions. Well done.
Nice. I love Stardew Valley. I listen to the soundtrack when I work sometimes.
I love it too now, but I've just only started playing it for the first time.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Just wait until you filled up the ridiculous parts of the town with like diamond creating machines that you harvest every month or whatever.
You know what? Oh, sorry. You turned into a robot there for a moment, Evan.
I did?
Yeah. Turn the diamond making machines. Then what did you say? That's
Yep.
it. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
I had tried to play it a few times, and I thought, oh, this is kind of simplistic or something. But what has hooked me is that it's really hard in the beginning, like to get it rolling, and that challenge is keeping me hooked. So,
and that's cool.
Yeah.
What else?
What season are you on?
Yeah.
Right now.
Oh, I think I'm maybe like 12 days in, something like that.
Well,
I barely have any crops going at all. So
get ready for more difficulties that might involve like social interactions in the first year when you haven't built up relationships with people.
Okay.
It could be heartbreaking.
Have you ever played it, Andrew?
I booted it up. I own it because Sebastian got it, and or I got it for him, and I thought he might like it, but he didn't really click with him.
Yeah.
And as soon as I started playing, I was like, "Oh God, this is one of those where it's just the time just melts away, and you have all these tasks that feel like you're actually getting something done. You know, like The Sims or like Minecraft. You know, where you're like, oh, I'm building this stuff and I'm making all this, and it's all just a game, but it's like satisfying." That like real world, like getting stuff accomplished. I'm like, I have too much other stuff I gotta do. This is
fun fact. Stardew Valley has an arcade in the bar called Earthborne.
Does it?
That you can play. Yeah.
Wow. Is it really?
Without the E at the end.
What is this?
Hey, you go to the town bar or no? Yeah, I think it's in the bar. It's like a bar restaurant, and there's an arcade you can play. Or maybe it's at one of their houses. There's like there is a console that you can play at someone's house.
That must be an Earthbound reference, right?
Probably
like a reference to the
it's like a
old RPG.
Down, you're like a cowboy and you're shooting goblins or something.
Wasn't that Evan? Wasn't that within that other game that you and I were playing?
Oh no, maybe I screwed that up.
What was that one called again? It had really good pixel art, but it was a little bit boring. RPG that came out a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I feel like that was where that was.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I screwed that up.
The Stardew Valley wiki says the arcade is called Prairie King.
Okay, yeah, Prairie King. I was thinking of the game in Eastward. That's the game.
Eastward, yeah.
Okay.
Prairie King. Sorry.
That was kind of fun to do that again sometime.
That was good.
It was fun. So yeah, that's my segment.
Let us know in the comments if you liked the 20 questions segment and if we should do it again.
I mean, it's okay to rip off the other podcast. They're just doing 20 questions.
I don't think IGN they do not own the trademark for 20 questions.
20 questions. I'll just have to play a new well-known game every 2 weeks for you guys to guess.
That's right.
I mean, I could just choose
Stardew Valley again.
Still playing it.
Got it in one.
Is it still Stardew Valley? Week 6. Yes. Also, I still have been playing Balatro nonstop. That is a total addiction for me.
So you have like Stardew Valley on one hand and then Balatro on the other?
I do kind of. I have like my Switch with Stardew Valley and Steam Deck with Balatro just stacked next to my bed for nighttime gaming.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't do them both at the same time.
Okay. That's what I was getting at.
Let's
You're
trade
not
off.
like an iPad kid where you get several devices going.
Oh my god. All right. Well, how about the next person? I don't have my. Who wants to go next? Evan.
Oh yeah. So Anders, I started playing Loop Hero again. That game you recommended. I don't remember why. What's that?
The music is so good.
Oh yeah, I love it. That's another soundtrack I listen to while I work. I don't remember why I stopped playing it. I think I was overwhelmed by the first boss because I didn't really understand how the mechanics of the game worked. But I started playing again because I was looking for a game that I could just drop in and out of quickly without a lot of thought or effort, because you don't really have to do anything other than move your mouse around and click the left button. And that's all I was really looking for, because I'm at this stage where I'm so busy that I can't invest a lot of time in big games, and I already sacrificed so much time out of my life to get through Final Fantasy Rebirth that I don't really want to do that again. So Loop Hero has been great, and now that I finally beat the first boss, I'm on the second chapter, and I understand more of the mechanics, how like the placing landscape tiles and placing things on the path help your character's stats, and also I've understood more about it's more important to have the day pass more than getting to the end of your loop before the day passes, because every time the day passes, the monsters get more difficult. But the more time you spend on the path, the stronger you can get. So it's figuring out what tiles to play on the path or in the surrounding area to benefit your strategy. And my current strategy is just like taking as much time as possible on one loop to like and getting as strong as I can, because at a certain point it becomes very difficult and tenuous to like stay to keep your hit points up like halfway through a loop when there's like mountains of little enemies just waiting for you, and so it's been a lot of fun, and I just can't get over the pixel art. It's so cool. Like I'll just look at the title screen and the filigree that they have worked into the corners of the text boxes and things, and the way they play with metallic reflections in a pixel art form. It's really cool. It's almost like, sometimes you can convert an image, you can downsample the hell out of it, and it becomes like basically pixel art. And you can and if you did that with like a metallic sphere, you can see how you can reduce down the reflections into these basic shapes and colors. Well, it's almost like they're doing that, but artistically, and not like by just manufacturing it. I don't know. I'm always paying attention to that sort of thing, because my own artistic process is, I'm always paying attention to light and shadow and color and temperature. So I love just poring over how other artists in other formats do that, like pixel art, so
it's so
when
good.
You guys were talking about the music, I was going to mention that I felt like the whole aesthetic of the game is just so on point.
The character design is cool,
and it all works together into this like really cohesive whole. The gameplay is just this very simple, like tile based, like when you think about graphically what the gameplay is, it's so basic, but like the aesthetics, from like the darkness to how the pixel art fades off into the darkness to how that like is it the first boss that's like that skeletal guy that like just hangs like in the darkness? Like it's just all of the aesthetic mashes so well together that I was very impressed by it when I played.
And I love the like combination of details too. There's the tiniest little just white stickman going around is like 3 levels of detail. I was thinking, I just had this thought, this might be like making the show go too long, but that's one of those roguelikes where they don't really tell you everything, hardly anything actually, and you just kind of discover how things work. You discover, if I do this, it's going to harm me or help me. I was just thinking, like, is there a way to do that in tabletop games where you don't really tell? Like, could you make it so that things are only discovered through playing it, and it's like clearly part of the design?
Oh yes, yeah.
There's like a couple different ways. Like a lot of games will put a lot of their design into like content instead of into like systems. Like in tabletop, you have to read most of the systems up front to understand how to start playing. But if a lot of the design is in content, you discover it as you're playing that content. And then there's also like emergent complexity, which is like stuff that comes out through interactions in play, right? Like, I mean, quintessential examples that are like Go or chess, where the actual game of Go and chess only comes out through how the pieces interact when 2 players play a lot, right? But like there are patterns that emerge when just naturally, they aren't just like the meta, they emerge naturally from the way the game plays, but like they aren't rules per se, right? So like a lot of tabletop games have stuff like that comes out like that, though it is harder just because you don't have the obfuscation of the computer backend that can do things and reveal things.
Like in Balatro, you you can change all your cards constantly, and then one time you decide to play 5 of the same card, and then there's 5 of a kind pops up, and it unlocks this whole thing. I'm just wondering, like, things that are like the programming, the coding can kind of say, hey, you did it, you discovered this thing. I don't know if that could translate into a...
It's called an envelope in a legacy game. Yeah, it happens like it's pretty common, like, legacy trope to, like, you get to the next threshold of understanding of the game. They're like, all right, now it's time to open up this envelope with these new pieces, and like that's how like Pandemic Legacy worked. Where as you go, it's layering on complexity, it's layering on systems, but it hides it behind a little package that you open up, and little stickers that you add to your rule books. Like, oh, now we can do these things.
Nice.
Well, we do hide a few things in Rangers, kind of like this. There's some things where players and playtesters will see a thing we put on a card somewhere and be like, well, why would I do that? Right. And like, there's no mechanical reason to do this thing, but then you get to read a little story entry, and that story entry has a choice, and then that choice leads you to this other thing, and then you get a reward, right? Like, but like, it all started with this thing. We present you with this thing with no context, and you have to be the one to want to like go out of your way to push that button. And not every button you can go out of your way to push is useful either. There are some that are just like, here's a little lore, enjoy, right? And so we do kind of hide some surprises throughout Rangers. It's not quite the same as like something that can be completely unknown, like the 5 of a kind is. But it is what we can do.
Yeah, I think our game has a lot of that stuff, honestly. Like like just like fatigue. Also, I think fatigue is like one of the things that I think new players of the game struggle with the most, because especially players who are familiar with just playing games. Because when you see fatigue, you're like, oh, I don't want to suffer fatigue. Like, that's bad. Like, running out of cards is bad. Therefore, fatigue is bad, and therefore I will not suffer fatigue. And we don't really give you any help about like, no, it's fine. Like, you should do that. You just kind of have to uncover that through playing. And so I think there are a few things like that in our game where it's not really apparent until you play the game a few times. You're like, oh, I see. This is how this works. And then then you get into it. I like that discovery, though. I'd rather it be obfuscated or not be as readily apparent when you first read the rules versus like just coming out and telling you, because it gives you an opportunity to feel like, you're gaining knowledge and you've figured it out on your own.
And isn't that kind of what makes any game engaging in the long run?
Yeah, like, I think so. Discovery
and new choices to be made. And
absolutely.
If we just tell them everything up front, you're going to get bored. Like, I didn't know there was a wizard in Stardew Valley. That was
spoilers.
That's pretty early. I would never expected that. Okay, let's keep going. We're going long. Fisher, your turn.
Yeah. I want to play the Elden Ring DLC, but I haven't yet.
I hear it's the hardest thing ever.
That's what I would say. I heard it's very difficult.
Yeah, and like it took me over 20 attempts to kill Melania after the end of the first game, so like I'm not exactly Souls-like expert to like dive back into this, but I will eventually. But right now, I've been actually, I think probably the most notable thing that I played over the last couple of weeks is I played a few games of Quacks of Quedlinburg, the board game.
The kids game?
This is from a discussion before the show. It's not necessarily a kids game, but it is a more like it's definitely on the approachable side of board games. Kind of push your luck. It's like a push your luck game about brewing potions.
This is what we played with Devi when he visited.
Yes, yep. Yeah, we played it with Devi. I enjoy it because it's very easy to teach, and the push your luck mechanism immediately makes people start having fun, and then you get these ingredients that synergize in these cool ways, and so you can you kind of do this like deck building component as you build your bag of ingredients for your potion.
Bag building
game. Yeah.
It's your standard bag builder.
We were playing it because a friend of mine, she never really played board games before, and we traumatized her by introducing her with like Mage Knight, Terra Mystica, Eclipse. It was just all these super heavy games, and so she's like averse to board games. And I was like, no, I promise, this one's easy. And she enjoyed it, so we played it a few times. But we branched out beyond the like first set of ingredients. I have one of the expansions, and so we were playing with a bunch of different ingredient sets, and like I was kind of disappointed by some of them. I didn't really feel like they were synergizing in the way I would hope, right? They were just kind of doing their thing. And that's fine, but like I don't know, I really like, like when playing Dominion or something, I like coming up with a set of cards to make these really interesting deck building decisions. So I designed my own Quack sets. I just used I didn't design whole new ingredient mechanics, but I took with the expansions, each ingredient type has 6 different possible rules. And so I like went through and I like created all these different sets that like play around to different mechanics and all like either synergize or play in interesting mutually exclusive spaces. So you kind of have this interesting interactions between the different ingredient sets. So, and then Sam and I have been playing those after we put Wyatt to bed. We'll play through one of my sets to kind of play test and see which things are working or not. So I've been having fun with Quacks the last couple of weeks.
That's cool. I played that. Sam came home the other day. He's like, I played this amazing game with his friends. He's down the street. There's a guy named Luke, and he has a bunch of kids, and he's a big board gamer. And he came home and said, "It's like, you ever heard of this game? It's called Quacks of something." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, Quacks of something. I've heard of that game." He was very excited because he played it, really enjoyed it, and he won. Of course, so, it's like the best game ever. So then, like a couple days ago, he borrowed it from them, and then last night we played that for the first time, and he set it up. He taught us the game. It was great. Like, yeah, to your point, it was very easy to teach. Like, he was able to remember everything. He did forget to tell us a couple things that caused a little bit of friction at one point, but for the most part, he did a really, really good job. I loved the books. The books are great. Mm-hmm. Those components are awesome. Like they're like it's like this cool little piece of punch board, maybe about this wide, that has like a little hand painted book on it, and then it has the little rules for the different types of ingredients on it. Oh, Fisher's gonna go get the books. I thought those are really cool. Yeah, yep. They almost look like you could open them. Like they're great.
That's cool.
They're really cool. Yeah, I thought it was all right.
To show off components that to show off components that don't actually come in the box, we do have. We've got these little.
That's cool.
Oh, it's a little crib.
Oh, that's awesome. You put the ingredients in there.
Crates, yeah, and then it separates all of them by type and their number and stuff.
I think my biggest beef with it, honestly, is like the physical sensation of reaching into the bag and like getting the components. Like they felt all greasy and gross. like if they were wood or something, like that would be better, or some other shape. Or
I shouldn't show this on our environmentally friendly.
I made a little like plastic ones.
These are acrylic. Yeah.
Are those official? Did they make those?
No, these are by. I think BGG actually, or the Geek Up store on BGG sells them. It makes the game so much more pleasant to play.
Yeah. Because that's the thing. I just did not like the feeling, and I never felt like I was like successfully randomizing the bits in the bag. I felt like they're all just kind of like, I tried to like shake it up. I felt like they're all just kind of like bouncing in place. So it was like I don't know, that whole process I did not particularly enjoy, but I won, of course.
If you if Sam is digging push your luck, but you want something a little more satisfying, could check out Cubitos if you've ever played that one.
I've seen that. I've never played it. No.
Yeah, you get like this big dice pool, and it's kind of, you roll it. All the dice are mostly blank sides, and you roll the dice pool, and then like you can re-roll all your blank sides again. But if you ever roll and it's all blanks, you bust, right? So it has this kind of push your luck, and then you kind of build your dice pool. So it has a similar kind of building your pool and pushing your luck with your pool to Quacks, but it's pretty satisfying because it's all just dice chucking, and then you kind of do this race.
Yeah, this is the one with the weird like cheese man on the cover. I saw this thing. I was like, what the hell is this game?
No, it's so bizarre. I think like it's this kind of, because the dice are cubes and so the characters are cubes, but yes, like it's just this cheese dude is the cover.
Is he a German cheese man?
Yeah, or like a Swiss cheese man or something. A Swiss cheese man.
Anyway,
it's by John
that's a good.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's a good push your luck alternative if you didn't quite click with Quacks.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I tried to be very as positive as I could be about it. Because he brought it over and taught us how to play it. I don't want to poop on it or anything. I thought it was fine.
What are the odds that both of you are going to play this game with someone named Sam this week?
That's right. Whoa. We both did that.
Yeah, we both played it with somebody named Sam.
Probably pretty high.
Andrew, what are your thoughts on the title, Quacks of Quedlingburg?
I think that's fine.
It's fine.
Okay,
I feel like a lot of people are going to say,
"Have you played cover art?"
It's class. It is exactly what you'd expect from a European board game cover.
What is that? Tell me what that is.
As somebody interested in mounting all of our most played games on the wall, I could use a better piece of cover art.
Yeah.
It's not very wall aesthetic, in my opinion.
It's like the Feast for Odin, Caverna, Agricola school. It might be the same artist. I don't know, but they're very, very similar. I don't mind that as much as a lot of people.
I just don't think it's very aesthetic to go on my gallery wall.
It's not aesthetic. Do you use aesthetic as a verb or as an adjective? I mean,
yeah.
You do.
Aesthetically pleasing.
Well, it's like a newer thing.
Is a noun, or like not a verb.
This is
the
aesthetic. Yep.
The youth these days says this is. Wow, that shirt is so aesthetic.
Yep.
Yeah, but they don't know how to talk.
But Fisher is saying Fisher
how to
he
talk
uses it. Anyway, good show. Does anybody? I really have to remember what I had to do before this podcast. I have to do that again.
Oh no!
Yeah, I had more things, but I think this is a good place to stop.
Okay.
I've been playing tabletop games. Maybe we'll talk about them more next time.
Oh, you want to talk about more?
No, that's all right.
Bye.
No.
You might see that I look like I'm sweating right now.
I've talked enough.
Okay, guys, this was a good one. I think we've got our title. And good talking to you guys. And thanks for joining us, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.